Hi guys, welcome back. A lot of us have narcissistic bosses. I don't necessarily mean that they have full-blown narcissistic personality disorder, but they have a lot of narcissistic traits that make them manipulate others and exploit situations to benefit them. Dealing with a boss like that can be really challenging, so today I wanted to share some of my insight and tips that I learned from dealing with my narcissistic boss. Before I get into talking about how to handle them, I want to share a few of the narcissistic traits that I'm talking about so you can suss out how narcissistic your boss is. And keep in mind that we all have some of these traits, but the people that we're talking about today have a lot of these traits, almost all the time. They have a superficial charm. They're masterful at putting on masks to make themselves appear smarter, more sincere, or more whatever they think is going to win their current audience over. They tend to be arrogant, with an inflated sense of their own importance. They believe they're so special, the rules, and sometimes even the laws, don't apply to them. They're obsessed with image and power. Frankly, they think they're better than us, and they flex their power a lot, just to make sure that we know they have it. The only people they respect are the ones they see as more powerful than them, or people who are useful to them in some way, like the managers above them in the chain of command, or people in HR and other orgs, who are willing to help them cover their illegal actions. They lack empathy, so they don't let the fact that their actions could seriously hurt someone stand in their way, like a normal person might. All these traits together create a real sense of entitlement. They believe they're so special and so important that the rest of us should just cater to their whims and preferences, even at the cost of our own rights. And they're likely to see our attempts to stand up for ourselves as an attack on them. How dare we question them? And they're likely to react by trying to put us back in our place, often by retaliating. To protect their inflated sense of self, they have to show us that they have all the power, and we are mere subordinates. The rules apply to us, not to them. Understanding that inner landscape can be really helpful to us. Sometimes we can use that knowledge to disarm them and end conflicts. Once after staff meeting, my boss followed me into my office yelling at me. She said it's obvious I didn't respect her anymore because if I did, I wouldn't be filing all these complaints and lawsuits. I'd filed 1 complaint and 0 lawsuits. But I didn't want to argue that with her. I just wanted her to go away. So I told her, actually, in spite of my complaint, I still have some respect for you as a person. But even if I didn't, I'd still respect your position as my supervisor. That dumbfounded her. She didn't know what to say. So she just said okay and left, which is the result I was after. And sometimes, knowing their inner landscape can help us trigger them into reacting. So they drop the charm act, take off the mask, and show their true selves. They do that to us all the time. They do vile things to us so that they can bait us into reacting, and then they try to spin that as misconduct. The same basic strategy can work for us. It isn't something I'd try on a daily basis, but triggering them can force them to show their true colors when it really counts, like at our hearing or mediation when someone else is watching. It's going to be most effective when someone important is in the room, but it can work at other times too. Unless you're trying to start a dumpster fire, it's a really bad idea to challenge a narcissist head on. A triggered narcissist can get really scary really fast, and when they're our boss, we have to avoid being insubordinate. So direct confrontation is usually a bad idea. Luckily for us, narcissistic bosses have extremely sensitive egos, especially when it comes to being questioned by subordinates. So we don't have to take them on directly. I found 2 things that always made my boss lose her cool: being fact-checked and being questioned. After I filed my complaint, my boss did her very best to make me look insubordinate because she knew if she could pull that off, then she could fire me without getting in trouble herself. She wanted that so badly that several times she gave me verbal orders to go do something, and then later came back at me complaining that I'd done it without her permission. As a good civil servant, I've always documented verbal orders, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. I'd just send a quick email. Hey, just verifying that you want me to contact this person about this project and make this thing happen. If I've misunderstood your expectations, please let me know ASAP so I can course correct. Otherwise, I'll let you know what happens by whatever the due date is. I sent my boss all those emails, so she should have known that when she came at me with, I didn't tell you to do this, I'd come back with those emails and say, yeah, you did. She hated it, but what could she do? Documenting verbal orders from your boss is an entirely reasonable thing to do. At my hearing, my attorney and my AJ did the fact-checking. When she claimed that I had never requested reasonable accommodation because I had never used those exact words, my AJ pulled out the 5 request forms that I submitted and asked her to read the first line at the top of every one of those forms. Request for reasonable accommodation is in big bold letters at the top of every one. And he didn't stop there. He fact-checked her whole testimony. And by the time her testimony was over, she was openly accusing the judge of being angry at her. And when he said he wasn't, she argued with him about it. It was hilarious to watch. Fact-checking works. Just remember that judges, attorneys, and investigators can get by with being way more direct about it than we can. We have to keep it indirect, respectful, and reasonable. And narcissistic bosses also deeply resent being questioned, especially by us subordinates. They fly into rages over that stuff. And even with people they consider to be their superiors, if the questions go on too long or hit a little too close to home, their rage is going to show itself eventually. They'll become snarky, brag, flaunt their power, or belittle the person asking the question. Whatever they can do to patch up their injured ego and reassert their superiority and entitlement. It's totally reasonable for us subordinates to ask polite, professional questions. Things like, can you please explain how you reached that conclusion? Can you clarify how you decided this was the right approach? Can you direct me to the policy that covers what you're telling me? In the description, I'll link to a couple of videos where I discuss questioning in more detail. Narcissistic bosses hate being challenged. They hate it so much that I'd never do it directly. All we have to do is gently and professionally fact-check them and question them, the same way we would any other coworker. Just the fact that we're resisting it all can make them melt down and act out, so we can shine a light on who they really are and what they're really about. I'll see you guys in the next one. Till then, take care and hang in.